The world never plays fair. No matter how honest you are, someone is actively calculating how to use your honesty against you. No matter how skilled you become in your craft, someone with half your talent and twice your political maneuvering is positioned to take your spot. That is reality. It is unvarnished, cold, and absolute. Most people spend their entire lives weeping over this reality, demanding that the world change its rules. They are the victims of history. But those who accept the rules as they are, those who look directly into the dark machinery of human nature, they do not just survive, they rule. What you're looking at is not mere cynicism, it is dark intelligence. This is a hidden leverage point that the masses cannot see, yet they are perpetually controlled by it. Dark intelligence is not inherited, it is forged. It is born precisely when a person is betrayed, humiliated, or systematically defeated. When the average person faces betrayal, they break down, they complain, they seek sympathy. But the dangerously smart individual takes that emotional trauma and converts it into cold, calculating leverage. They build architectural strength from the very pain meant to destroy them. It is an intelligence that listens when others boast, watches when others relax, stays completely silent when others demand attention, and strikes with absolute precision at the exact moment of maximum vulnerability. While your competitors argue, you gather their psychological blueprints. While they succumb to anger, you calculate their financial and social ruin. While they drown in the chaotic currents of their own emotions, you design the next decade of your empire. Most people are playing checkers. They react to the immediate move in front of them. By the end of this masterclass, you will understand how to play chess on a board they don't even know exists. But let me be crystal clear before we unlock these vaults. This knowledge is weaponized psychology. It is built for absolute protection, not mindless destruction. You are to use these principles to defend your sovereignty, secure your family, and protect your enterprise from the predators of the modern world, not to harm the innocent. The goal is to master the game completely so that you can never be made the villain or the victim. Today, we will dissect the 8 ruthless psychological traits that separate the survivors from the casualties, the historical leaders from forgotten followers, the absolute winners from perpetual losers. Pay close attention. Look at the timeline of this video. Lesson number 4, which we will reach exactly at the 20-minute mark, contains what I call the silent leverage matrix. It is the exact psychological mechanism used by elite executives to force superiors to submit without ever uttering a single threat. If you miss that specific segment, the rest of this framework will remain completely inert. Do not skip ahead. The mind must be conditioned sequentially to handle this level of strategic weight. Before we reveal the first trait, we must filter the passive viewers from the true strategists. If you possess the discipline to reprogram your subconscious, type this exact psychological anchor into the comments right now. I choose to be strategically intelligent, not emotionally reactive. Leave it there as a permanent digital contract with yourself. Now, let us unlock the hidden mechanics of absolute power. Lesson 1. Calculated opacity. The first weapon of the sovereign mind is calculated opacity. To be dangerously smart means you are never completely clear about your true intentions. You treat your mind as a high-security vault, allowing the world to see only the heavily curated artifacts you choose to display on the surface. When people look at you, they should see a mirror that reflects their own assumptions, never a window that reveals your next move. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote extensively on this specific dynamic in The Prince. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Consider the fatal flaw of the modern era, oversharing. The average individual treats their mind like a social media feed, broadcasting their vulnerabilities, their immediate frustrations, and their long-term strategies to anyone who will listen. They believe they are building authentic connections. In reality, They are hand-delivering the exact blueprints their adversaries need to dismantle them. When you practice calculated opacity, you deliberately leave strategic gaps in your narrative. You do not lie. Lying is a clumsy amateur's game that creates logical liabilities. Instead, you employ strategic underdisclosure. You speak in complete sentences, but you leave the underlying motivations completely unsaid. When you do this, an incredible psychological phenomenon occurs. The human brain abhors a vacuum. When people know only half of your story, their imagination automatically rushes in to fill the blank spaces, and their own imagination is what ultimately controls them. Let us look at a standard corporate interaction to see how this operates in reality. A colleague or competing manager approaches you at a corporate function and asks about your long-term career trajectory or your department's upcoming quarterly project. The average professional, driven by the desperate need to appear important, overshares. Well, I'm actually targeting the VP role by next October, so I'm pushing my team to automate our data pipelines to impress the board. With that single sentence, they have revealed their timeline, their target, their method, and their vulnerability. A political rival can now systematically undermine that automation process or poison the board perception of that specific goal. Now, observe the master of calculated opacity. When asked the exact same question, the response is delivered with a calm, assured smile. We are currently optimizing our core systems to handle whatever volatile shifts the market presents next. There are some highly compelling developments unfolding. Then, you immediately pause, look them directly in the eye, and seamlessly redirect the conversation. But tell me, how is your team navigating the new compliance infrastructure? Notice the surgical execution. You have spoken with absolute authority, yet you have revealed absolutely zero actionable data. You have created an intense curiosity gap. Your rival leaves that conversation thinking you know something they don't. They spend the next week analyzing your words, losing sleep, and adjusting their strategy around a ghost. Your information is your highest form of currency. Do not spend it all in a single conversation. Lesson 2. The adaptive persona. The second trait of dark intelligence is the cultivation of the adaptive persona. The masses are obsessed with a rigid, dogmatic definition of authenticity. They believe they must be the exact same person, with the exact same tone and demeanor in every single environment they occupy. This is not authenticity. It is strategic rigidity, and it leads directly to institutional irrelevance. The dangerously smart individual understands that human society is a complex masquerade. To survive and dominate, you must possess an emotional chameleon skin. You are not the same person with everyone. You intentionally calibrate your personality, your vocabulary, your posture, and your energetic frequency based entirely on the psychological profile of the individual standing in front of you. Machiavelli laid out this cold necessity with absolute precision. A prince ought to take care that he never lets anything slip from his lips that is not replete with the 5 qualities, that he may appear to him who sees and hears him altogether merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious. This is not about being deceitful or fraudulent. It is about being profoundly effective. You already do this subconsciously to a minor degree. You do not speak to an executive board the same way you speak to a childhood friend. The adaptive persona simply takes this natural human capability and upgrades it into an intentional, high-level psychological tool. Think of your core identity as water. Water never loses its molecular reality, whether it is poured into a delicate teacup, a heavy glass bottle, or a massive concrete reservoir. It adapts entirely to the shape of a container, while retaining its intrinsic power to give life or erode stone. Your core values, your non-negotiable principles, and your ultimate objectives remain completely solid, like a diamond, but your external presentation must be highly fluid. When you walk into a room filled with highly analytical, risk-averse data scientists, your adaptive persona instantly shifts. Your posture straightens, your speech patterns slow down, and you communicate exclusively through cold logistics, metric verifications, and historical precedents. The moment you step out of that room and into a negotiation with an aggressive, ego-driven venture capitalist, your persona shifts instantly. You drop the minutiae of data. You lean back, project immense confidence, speak in broad macroeconomic frameworks, and appeal directly to their desire for market dominance. You are speaking their native psychological language. When people hear their own subtext reflected through your persona, their primitive defense mechanisms drop instantly. They do not feel manipulated. They feel profoundly understood. You make it effortless for them to align with your agenda because you have eliminated all communicative friction. Remember the warning. Never let the adaptation consume the core. If you lose your foundational principles in the process of adapting, you are no longer a strategist. You are a leaf blowing in the wind. The multifaceted diamond is beautiful because it reflects light in every direction, but underneath the sparkle, it remains an unyielding, unbreakable mass. Lesson 3. The principle of detachment. We now enter the realm of true emotional sovereignty. The principle of detachment. The single greatest point of vulnerability in any human being is desperation. The moment you become desperately attached to a specific job title, a specific relationship, a specific sum of money, or the validation of a specific peer group, you have handed them the remote control to your nervous system. You have invited them to manipulate you. Machiavelli understood that human relationships are governed by power dynamics, not sentimental fantasies. He famously argued, since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. In modern psychological terms, this translates to a profound truth. The person who has the absolute willingness to walk away from any table holds the ultimate leverage in the room. Detachment is widely misunderstood by the masses. They assume it means becoming a cold, unfeeling robot or an isolated monk. That is a weak interpretation. True detachment is an extraordinary state of internal freedom. It means you care deeply about your work, your objectives, and your people, but you are never desperate for them. You operate with a permanent cognitive realization that you were whole before you entered the scenario, and you will remain whole even if the scenario completely collapses into ash. Let us analyze a high-stakes corporate negotiation to see this principle in action. Imagine two distinct executives negotiating an enterprise contract. Executive A has over-leveraged their company. They desperately need this deal to close this quarter to meet their revenue targets and survive a board review. They are emotionally attached to a positive outcome. Executive B has spent the last year diversifying their client base. They have 3 alternative pipelines running simultaneously. They want the deal to close because it is profitable, but they do not need it to survive. Throughout the negotiation, Executive A will give away their margin, compromise their operational integrity, and accept terrible terms because their fear of loss paralyzes their strategic thinking. Executive B sits in absolute silence, spots the desperation, holds firm on their premium pricing, and dictates the entire narrative. Executive B does not win because they are smarter. They win because they are detached. When you train your mind in the art of detachment, you strip away the leverage points that bad actors use to control you. If a toxic superior hints that they might withhold their approval or terminate your position, your pulse does not elevate. They look at your eyes and they do not see the standard flicker of panic. Instead, they see a calm, deep ocean of strategic options. They realize that threatening you is like trying to catch the wind in a net. Pattern interrupt. The narrator leans forward, speaking with absolute gravity. We are arriving exactly at the 20-minute mark. Prepare your mind, because we are now unlocking the core architecture of this entire system. Silent leverage. Lesson 4, silent leverage. Welcome to the inner sanctum of strategic dominance. Silent leverage. The amateur believes that power is loud. They believe it requires slamming your hand on a boardroom table, raising your voice, asserting dominance through aggressive posturing, and making grand, public demands. That is not power. That is insecurity broadcasting its own desperation. It is a loud signal that screams, "Please notice me. I am terrified of being weak." Real power whispers. Real power operates through absolute silence, structural positioning, and the deliberate creation of psychological tension. Silent leverage is a highly advanced art of influencing human behavior and altering institutional outcomes without ever making an overt demand, issuing a clumsy threat, or asking for permission. You construct reality in such a way that others naturally choose to execute your agenda entirely of their own volition, while believing it was their own original idea. Machiavelli observed this quiet, dangerous execution when he wrote, "Never was anything great achieved without danger. But the dangerously smart individual ensures that the danger is entirely borne by their competitors, while they remain wrapped in a cloak of absolute discretion." How do you implement silent leverage in an environment filled with aggressive, high IQ competitors? You master the psychological pause and structural indispensability. First, consider the mechanics of a high-stress conversation. When someone asks you a complex, confrontational, or manipulative question designed to trap you, the average person suffers from conversational panic. They rush to fill the silence within 0.5 seconds, babbling defenses and revealing unvetted details. The master of silent leverage does something entirely different. When targeted with a hostile query, they do not speak. They drop their expression into absolute neutrality. They hold direct, unbroken eye contact for 3 full seconds. That 3-second silence feels like an eternity to the aggressor. The social tension rises exponentially. The aggressor's brain begins to panic, wondering, what does this person know? Did I cross a line? Why are they so completely unbothered? In many cases, the aggressor will actually begin to backtrack and de-escalate their own statement before you have even opened your mouth. You have dominated the interaction using nothing but a pause. Second, look at structural positioning. You do not announce that you are the architect of an organization. You simply identify the critical, highly complex operational bottlenecks that no one else wants to touch, the severe data crises, the highly sensitive client accounts, the foundational regulatory pipelines. You quietly step in and take total ownership of those specific areas. You solve them smoothly without bragging or looking for quick corporate accolades. Over time, you become an indispensable pillar of the architecture. You do not have to demand promotion or a seat at the table. The leadership team realizes with a cold chill that if you walk out the door, 40% of their operational infrastructure collapses into chaos. You have established absolute leverage without ever raising your voice. Lesson 5. The psychological echo. The 5th trait of dark intelligence is the execution of the psychological echo. The average human being is trapped inside an intense prison of egocentrism. When they engage in a conversation, they are not actually listening to you. They are simply waiting for your mouth to stop moving so they can launch into their own pre-recorded thoughts, desires, and personal histories. They want to talk about themselves. The dangerously smart individual exploits this universal human flaw by transforming themselves into a precise psychological mirror. You reflect people's deepest unfulfilled needs, hidden anxieties, and secret ideological commitments back to them with absolute fidelity. When they speak with you, they experience a strange, intoxicating sensation. They feel completely understood. They believe you are their kindred spirit, someone who finally speaks their unique language. But in reality, you are executing a systematic psychological scan. Machiavelli noted this deep human vulnerability in his analysis of political court dynamics. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. To deploy the psychological echo, you must permanently shift your listening modality from passive processing to subtext mining. Every time a superior, a client, or a partner speaks to you, they are broadcasting subtle clues about their core psychological drivers. For example, a high-ranking stakeholder complains to you during a project review. This department keeps missing the fine details on these compliance sheets. I'm tired of having to audit everything myself over the weekend. The average professional hears the surface complaint and responds with logistics. Okay, we will try to implement a double-check system next week. This response is completely dry and easily forgotten. The master of Dark Intelligence listens to the deep subtext. What is this stakeholder actually saying? They are revealing that they feel completely unsupported, that they are terrified of regulatory exposure, and that their personal time is being systematically violated. The psychological echo response is delivered with absolute calm and empathy. It sounds like you are carrying the entire weight of this company's regulatory safety on your shoulders, and it's frustrating to have your personal time compromised by operational gaps that should be handled correctly the first time. Observe the transformation. You did not offer a cheap solution. You echoed their exact internal emotional reality. The stakeholder's brain flashes with validation. Finally, someone who truly sees my value and understands my pain. Instantly, their trust in your capability expands exponentially. Once that trust loop is locked, you can present your strategic solutions, your requests for resources, or your terms for organizational restructuring, and they will swallow them whole. You have mapped their psychological architecture and used it to establish absolute alignment. Lesson 6. Ambiguous morality. We now enter the most controversial and widely misunderstood chapter of Dark Intelligence. Ambiguous morality. The masses operate in a simplistic, fairy tale world governed by rigid, binary moral codes. Good versus bad, black versus white, absolute saints versus absolute villains. They demand that institutions and leaders operate according to these pristine, theoretical ethics. Yet, history consistently demonstrates that those who cling to dogmatic moral purity in highly complex, competitive environments are the very first to be sacrificed on the altar of reality. The dangerously smart individual rejects binary thinking in favor of pragmatic realism. They understand that the execution of high-level strategy takes place almost exclusively within the vast, intricate gray areas of human existence. They are neither performatively good nor wantonly cruel. They are fundamentally effective. Their actions are dictated not by what makes them look like an angel in the short term, but by what produces the highest value, most stable, and most protective outcome for the entire enterprise in the long term. Machiavelli laid bare this cold truth with surgical efficiency. How we live is so different from how we ought to live that he who studies what ought to be done rather than what is done will learn the way to his downfall rather than to his preservation. Let us strip away the theoretical philosophy and look at a real-world crisis of leadership. You are a newly appointed general manager overseeing a critical project with tight margins. You discover that a veteran employee, who is widely loved across the office floor for their warm personality and humorous jokes, is systematically underperforming, missing safety data, and subtly poisoning team morale by complaining about new efficiency metrics. The standard nice manager, trapped in binary morality, prioritizes short-term comfort. They say, well, firing them would be too harsh. It would hurt their family and the office will be sad. Let's just keep coaching them and hope things change. This decision looks kind on the surface. In reality, it is deeply unethical. By protecting one toxic underperformer, the manager is actively endangering the bonuses, the physical safety, and the employment security of the other 50 hardworking professionals on the team. The leader practicing ambiguous morality looks at the systemic math. They do not act out of anger or malice. They calmly, cleanly, and calculatedly design an exit strategy for that underperformer. They execute determination with cold corporate precision, ignoring the temporary office blowback. They understand that protecting the collective empire requires making surgical cuts that the masses will label as ruthless. You must build clear, unbreakable internal boundaries for your own soul. Lines you will never cross, such as stealing from the innocent or violating basic human rights. But within those strategic boundaries, you must grant yourself the absolute psychological permission to play chess in the gray zone. Focus entirely on macroscopic outcomes, and let the small-minded debate the ethics of your aesthetics. Lesson 7. Controlled exposure. The 7th lesson in psychological warfare is controlled exposure. We live in an age characterized by pathological exhibitionism. People believe that if they do not display every facet of their intelligence, their net worth, their technical skills, and their personal relationships to the world, they do not exist. This desperate need for visibility is a massive strategic error. It stems from a fragile ego seeking validation from the crowd. The master of Dark Intelligence treats personal and professional capabilities as a highly classified tactical asset. You never reveal everything you are capable of doing at once. You deliberately hold back 40% of your knowledge, your technical mastery, and your strategic options in deep reserve. When people look at you, they should believe they have mapped your limits, when in reality, they have only seen the shoreline of an entire continent. Machiavelli recognized the deep simplicity of human perception when he wrote, "Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful person will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived." By controlling what you expose, you harness the immense power of the curiosity gap. You transform yourself into a permanent enigma, ensuring that your competitors can never confidently formulate a strategy against you because they lack the foundational data to predict your maximum operational ceiling. How do you implement controlled exposure when entering a new corporate or strategic environment? You execute the gradual revelation strategy. When you step into a new executive or managerial position, the temptation to show off all your skills, certifications, and historical wins in the first 14 days is immense. Resist it entirely. If you reveal your maximum capabilities on day 1, you establish an impossibly high-performance baseline that becomes mundane by day 90. Furthermore, you give your political rivals ample time to study your style and build defensive measures against you. Instead, step into the environment with quiet, measured competence. Execute your basic mandates flawlessly, but keep your specialized skills, such as crisis management, macroeconomic forecasting, or advanced cross-departmental negotiation, completely hidden. Wait until the organization hits a massive, unforeseen wall 3 months down the line. When the executive team is panicking in a closed-room meeting, you quietly reach into your psychological reserve. You lay out a flawless, highly sophisticated blueprint to solve the crisis, a skill set they had no idea you possessed. The impact is seismic. You do not just look like a good employee. You look like a savior who is continuously growing, evolving, and offering infinite depths of value. You have leveraged your information assets through precise timing. Keep some of your cards face down on the table. The game is won by the player who can make moves no one saw coming. Lesson 8. The Monarch's Conclusion. We have traveled through the deep, hidden architecture of human nature and high-level strategy. From the deliberate containment of calculated opacity to the surgical placement of silent leverage, you now hold the keys to a kingdom governed not by luck or sentimental hope, but by absolute psychological reality. The chessboard is fully illuminated before you. The question that remains is not whether these rules are real, but whether you possess the internal discipline, the emotional control, and the ruthless pragmatic focus to execute them in your daily life. Will you remain a passive piece on the board, move at the whim of louder, more aggressive players? Or will you become the grandmaster who quietly shapes the destiny of the entire room? This masterclass was designed for select few who refuse to let the world dictate their sovereignty. If you feel your strategic consciousness expanding, do not let this energy evaporate into passive entertainment. Lock in this knowledge permanently by hitting the subscribe button right now. By doing so, you are signaling to the algorithm that your mind requires elite, high-value strategic content, ensuring that our upcoming tactical breakdowns materialize directly on your feed. Share this playbook with one individual whom you have chosen to protect in this lifetime. Study these lessons. Watch this masterclass a second time to decode the subtext embedded within each module, and remember the eternal law of the sovereign mind. Watch everything. Listen to everyone. Reveal nothing. Stay sharp. Stay sovereign. Until our next strategic briefing.